Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Rogues Gallery Live. Like I said, welcome to Rogues Gallery Live. My name is Chris, the Batman statue collector, and we are joined by a special panel tonight. And I do apologize because right before we went live, my internet completely crashed. I have no idea if you can even see me or hear me right now, but so fingers crossed this show won't crash and burn, but it is a no-holds-barred type of show, and so really excited to be with you all tonight. And if we do crash and burn, this guy right over here, Dan DeFault from Wayne Manor North is here. How's it going, sir?
Hey, everybody. Standing by, ready and able, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And right next to Dan up here, we have the incredible Chad Colbank from Tweeterhead. How's it going, Chad?
It's going great, although I can't wait to talk to you about that photo you found of me and David.
So that is the worst. It is the worst thumbnail of all time. But I commented on Dave's comment on Facebook. I'm like, it isn't impossible to find photos of you guys that are current.
Yeah, there's when I first started dating Kelly 10 years ago, like when she was trying to show pictures of me to her mom, she couldn't find a serious photo of me because I was always making faces. I don't like taking serious photos. So upon request for sure, you know.
That's right. So I just need to get some of you guys. You could send them to me or something so I can use for future thumbnails. So yeah. anyway, welcome, Chad. We also have right down here from Secret Sanctuary, Mr. Jeff Delaney in the house.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Looking forward to an awesome show.
Awesome.
Glad that you're here. And then, of course, Dave Igo, of course, from Sideshow fame, Tweeterhead's fame, Monster Palooza. You've seen this guy all around. And so we're really excited to have you back on the show, Dave.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here. It's always fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Eric B in the house. How's it going, Eric?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Of course, Eric's from All Things Art, so glad to have the whole panel here. And again, this is kind of our week off, but we had the opportunity to go live and kind of talk about the current state of what's going on in the statue collecting world. We talked a lot about obviously shipping costs and production things, and obviously sales and what's up with everything right now. And so Chad was kind enough to say, hey, let's come on, let's talk about it, let's kind of hash it out. We also have Dave on to talk about some of the newer stuff that's coming out, some of the amazing things that Tweeterhead's been working on, including some really great monster stuff, which I'm very, very excited about. And so can't wait for that. So first kind of question that I have is, we talked a little bit earlier today, Chad, about, kind of like just the state of what's going on in the community. So do you want to just kind of fill us in from your side of things, kind of like where we are right now? Because I think a lot of companies, I've talked to you and other companies, and companies seem to be kind of like hurting right now because, there's been low ESs. And you could just kind of tell that things are kind of hurting right now because of the economy. But maybe you could fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, I guess the good news is we're all in the same boat, right? So it's not like any company is not, and the word struggling isn't correct, but we're just not seeing the same kind of action we saw like 2 years ago or during COVID. And I think during COVID, that was one of our best years because obviously everyone was at home and they were wanting to spend money on stuff. But yeah, it definitely seemed, it was just, I think the thing for me that is a little, not confusing, but it's just it seemed to happen really fast as opposed to a slow trickle down. It seemed to be boom, 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 and then crash. And, I don't know how much of it has to do with the economy, or I don't know if it has to do with, character choices or, some people maybe aging out a little bit and deciding not to collect. So I'm not really sure. So, I wish I knew. If I knew, you would be like, hey, how do we course correct? But I think that, like I was saying to Dan earlier, I think this is maybe this was necessary. Maybe this is just a natural pendulum swing and we go back to, smaller edition sizes and more kind of cultivated pieces and just kind of go back to the beginning. Whenever I first started, I was selling 300 pieces or 400 pieces of stuff and I thought it was amazing,
Yeah.
So So I think like, I mean, do you guys have any opinion on like why things kind of did that kind of immediate slowdown?
I'm still stuck on aging out. Am I going to age out of this?
Yeah, right.
You might. We all might. You know?
No.
They kick me out at 60 or something?
You get the senior discount now.
You have to buy after 60. You have to buy a certain amount per year to stay in the club.
There you go.
Stand
Well,
the cold
I guess the obvious answer is, have we oversaturated part of the market?
I think that's part of it.
That feels like part of it for sure, because I think Chad and I have, and I think people would notice this with our edition sizes. It's not like it's a secret, but like our He-Man stuff's been performing really good and DC's been struggling a little bit more. And I think that directly shows to me, hey, it's oversaturation of like a lot of DC. Like a lot of companies make DC. Obviously, a lot of people love DC. A lot of people love Marvel. A lot of people love Star Wars. A lot of people make that stuff. And there's only a couple people making He-Man stuff. Mattel's been a great partner in helping, like, for lack of a better term, but like protecting essentially what we've been making. Because yeah, if like there's all of a sudden a blitzkrieg of a million companies making He-Man stuff, it might be a different story, and it might be great for certain collectors, and a lot of collectors might be overwhelming. And then, you know, I don't know. It's just it's been really good to see. There's exceptions to the rule. It's not like, you know, sales are down for us across the board. He-Man stuff's been doing shockingly well, even when, you know, certain characters like Merman are outperforming, you know, certain characters that aren't Merman on the DC line. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of crazy. So,
Well, you've mentioned DC, and like obviously, you know, I'm a big Batman guy, so I want as much Batman as you can get. But I do feel just exactly what Jeff said about the oversaturation. I feel like there's been so many companies. I mean, in the old days, it was just Sideshow. I mean, it was, you know, Sideshow, and then a few Tweeterhead pieces here, or then, you know, but then now there's so many different companies making they're all amazing. I mean, they're all different, but they're all amazing stuff right now. And so obviously the price point continues to go up because of the economy and everything else and all the things that go into producing these incredible pieces of art. But I've heard from multiple companies that all say the same thing about DC. First of all, they're kind of difficult to work with in a lot of ways, you know, and I've heard that across the board, but also that they are, you know, they're just not selling. They're just not selling right now. And so obviously I'm frustrated with that because I'd like to see them do very, very well. So we get more characters that we're wanting. And I applaud Tweeterhead greatly for taking the risk on Two-Face. Again, that was a character that I've wanted for a very long time. Dating all the way back to I Go at Sideshow. I was really hoping that you would do one there. And now now we get one from Tweeterhead, which is very, very exciting. And but you know, even that, you know, how do you feel like Two-Face is doing, Chad? How do you, on your end?
You know, I think it's doing, like, I think we, like Dave and I, we know what our expectation level is now. And so, you know, I don't think we were shocked, but it definitely, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't the old days. You know what I mean? It wasn't 4 years ago. And I think that, you know, I think it's slightly unfortunate timing because so many people ask for Two-Face. And then, like, we made a Two-Face, which we both love, and a lot of people have said how it's fantastic, but the response was a little less than we expected. But I think that has more to do with timing than Two-Face as a statue, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely. And obviously, you know, you guys are offering it in 6 scale. Sideshow's offering it in quarter scale. I don't know how well sales have done for Sideshow, but hopefully they've done well. On your end of things, does it, I don't know, does it hurt? If it doesn't sell well, does it hurt the chances of other characters being made, basically?
You know, I wouldn't know. I don't think so, because I think, like, Dave and I were both passionate about these characters, and we don't want to make the same ones. Like, I mean, it's necessary to make some duplicates, but we just talked about our line list today, and there are some things on there that would surprise people, I think.
Well, you said, sorry. You said as you lower the edition sizes, you said the company can still can the company somewhat still, like, you know, thrive, or would you have to, like, raise prices on statues? Or
no, I mean, we have the kind of keyed system as far as what the price should cost, and that was something I wanted to mention. Is I know that I've seen some people comment about, you know, the higher prices, and for lack of a better word, like, we're just raising the prices because we can. But honestly, like, we take a hit on shipping every single time we ship something out because the shipping is insane right now. And as far as the production costs, like I said, that's gone up also. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're not raising something by $100 just because we can, or because we think that's a good idea. Yeah. We've always I've been a one-man show. Now we're a two-man show, and we really are here like for those collectors. So sometimes when we have a discussion and I'm like, oh, it's got to be X, it's like, oh crap. But but then we have conversations. Well, do we take a hit on something just to get it out there? And we agree on it.
Yeah, like the rest of that's what I would say. You guys always have fair price points when it comes to your statues. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I know sometimes it can be like, I know a lot of people were scoffing at Two-Face price a little bit, but at the end of the day, like Chad and I aren't just like making these up. It's like we directly always look at like what the production cost is, and we factor in with everything else, and we have a certain times markup like any other company does because we have to clear a certain amount. And it's like that's what it is. And sure, if we sold 5,000, we get to tell the factory, hey, we're going to sell 5,000 of these things, the price would come down. But, we're being really, really, really conservative with our projections because we have to. And sometimes, we go lower on Two-Face, not knowing what he's going to do. And if he goes higher, great. Then we can take that and invest into crazier stuff, And
I think a lot of times people, and that's why it's nice to hear you guys talk about that. And I tend to hear about it on the backside of things, but when the community at large, I think it's nice to hear that like there are all these ledger lines that you guys have to check off your boxes too. And there's so many costs associated. Paying the artist to sculpt, or the factory costs, the painters, everybody that's involved, and there's costs to each one of those things. And obviously, I don't think people always think of that. And if you just look around you, everything is expensive right now, no matter whether it's a statue, whether it's a carton of eggs at the supermarket. It's just the way it is right now. And so, I just, people have to understand that there are, again, you guys aren't just making up numbers. There are things associated with that. And I was also curious too, like Chad, you were just saying about, you're still willing to take risks on some characters. Does it help that like, obviously the He-Man line, big success, doing very, very well. Does that help, offset things kind of because, you are doing well on one side of things, but maybe not as well on the other. So it kind of all balances out.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'd be crazy if we were like, okay, He-Man's doing so well, so all of this is going to support just He-Man. And then we're going to take a step back on this other. It's like a big family, right? It's like, that's how I see it. All these licenses all work together and they help us. And, you're right. To go back to what you said, though, I want to say, like, it takes a village to get the photos up on our website. To get to that point, it takes, and Dave could tell you this also, it takes so many people. And we, appreciate all their work, all their efforts. Tweeterhead is, everyone jumps through hoops because I'm always a day late. But yeah, it does. It's like success is great. Challenges kind of help you determine what you're going to do. But yeah, we're just chugging away, and we're not going to say, oh, we're not going to make an XYZ DC character. We're going to focus more on the He-Man character. We're going to spread it out.
And also, like, Chad, that's a great thing about having Chad with me. Like, we get to work together is we get to divide and conquer, for lack of a better term. We're like Chad loves Motu and He-Man and all that stuff too, but like he brought me on to help continue the line that was started at Sideshow, and that's where my main focus is. And then he's able to focus on DC and other things, like he has a long-standing relationship with Elvira, and looking at other new licenses we're talking about too that he has a passion for as well. So we can kind of like add it all to the pot, and then we can kind of like figure out like, oh, if this thing does well, can we then take that and invest in this other thing? It doesn't mean it's directly like license to license. It could be across other things, or like the Myths and Monsters, go like a totally new, invest in Tweeterhead, invest in our own IP essentially. So
I love that. And I like that you said that, because it really is a passion project. It's like, you can see, when you look at your He-Man line, you can see, we've talked about it behind the scenes. You can see the passion there because it's next level. It's incredible. And so, on our side of things, we really appreciate, that passion being put in, whether it's, again, Chad DC or Elvira or whatever project you guys are working on or have in the works. That's exciting because you could feel that. And I think that's really important, because I think some companies, they don't they just get the license and they just, try to print money. They don't always, care about necessarily the project. And you can tell sometimes that there's not a lot of love put into some pieces. So I really like to hear that. That's awesome.
And obviously, some days it's more enjoyable. Some days it feels more like work because you get bad news here, bad news there, licensor X or sales Y, so it's like, it gets hard. Just like Chad and I have moments where that's another great thing about having a partner. Is sometimes Chad's having a down day. He's like, oh, this, and I'm like, oh, well, lift him up. And then some days I'm having a down day and he lifts me up. So that's a great thing. We like co-carry the weight, instead of like all being on Chad and I'm just supporting. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think I think that, like, I know you brought up like DC and the sales. I think this is just kind of a across the board, all kind of licenses situation where, it's just, I think people are taking a little break right now. But I feel like it's coming back. I mean, I feel like, things are getting better,
Maybe collectors are just happy with their collections the way they are. You never know. Everybody's retiring.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
we got everything we needed.
I mean, that is the problem too, is like with the oversaturation, and we talk about it all the time, space. Space is limiting. So like you either have to sell something in order to get something new, which is what I've been doing all week. I still have some, selling 5 or 6 pieces because I know I've got stuff coming in. And so I could definitely see your point there. And Chad, you were talking about licensing. I know sometimes I don't think people always understand too. And again, we've had some conversations behind the scenes about sometimes there's limitations about what the company will let you do, and the frustrations with that, because there's a lot of times what stuff that you guys really want to do, you're not able to do. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think and again, it's across the board, these, the license holders, they're seeing like how the world is reacting to things at the moment. And they're also reacting to, what we're doing. And so sometimes there are rules that, Dave and I would like to do X, but they're like, we appreciate it if you don't. And, just a sensitive topic, but, it's, it is just the way it is, and you just have to appreciate it. And obviously, nobody is trying to say like, don't do this because we want you to not sell something or have a product that isn't maybe as wonderful as it could be. It's just a reaction, I think, to the times that we're living in at the moment. And like, I don't think there's anything bad about it. I think it's just like, everyone's just being kind of careful,
And there's also just something I think a lot of people don't realize too, and this is something we've learned on this side. I've become really close to our like licensing partners. They're amazing people. Sometimes it comes from them or people above them. But at the end of the day, like every medium is treated differently. It's not like everything's treated the same. Film has their own rules. Television has their own rules. Video games has their own rules. Publishing has their own rules, and consumer products have their own rules. And so like a lot of people point to like, well, they can do this in the movie. Why can't they do that as a statue? It's like, I know I don't disagree, but at the same time, it's like there's different rules for different categories, and we're fortunate we get to play in this sandbox, and hopefully eventually we can do more with what we want to do. But at the end of the day, it's like we choose to take on the license and we have to figure some things out, and it's all good. Like Mattel actually has been particularly supportive with our vision, with like what we've done with He-Man in particular. Like we thought we were working on Tila, we thought we might have to like go a little bit more conservative, and they're very supportive of like we felt we found like a tasteful level with her, and they're like, yep, that's cool. We're like, just worries like more, like move some curves. It's like,
actually ask you a question about that. So instead of going through the whole design process, can you reach out to the company and tell them what you're looking to do as far as how the statue is going to look, and then get the approval? Like say like Scarface, for example. I mean Two-Face, sorry. Could you have avoided like sculpting the dynamite and all that just by running it by them first and seeing what they say? Or
there's also, not to get into super specifics, but sometimes like what's approved in design was one period in time, and then as things evolve, teams can change, rules change, but they still like let us do things, and sometimes just don't want us to market it, because then it's like really putting it out there like, hey, this can go in the box, just don't like make a big deal out of it or something. So yeah, a lot of times we show them things and things might change over time because of, again, timestamps, or, hey, you can do this, just don't celebrate it, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
And also it's like a challenge, right? If it's like, you can't do this, so then we could just go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, what do we do to make this thing? Like, are we boxing ourselves in? Are there other options that we're not really thinking about?
Yeah. Absolutely. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to BoardQ1of2, $5 super chat Canadian. Big thanks to Chad and David for taking the time to speak with us tonight. You're making great pieces, and thank you. So that's a really nice, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate the super chat. And it is really great to have you guys here.
No,
Canadian. What is that, like 322 or something? I don't know what that is. I'm just giving him a hard time, but great member of the channel. So real quick, I want to, we titled this No Holds Barred, and so I'm going to go No Holds Barred here a little bit. So Chad,
just went down. I apologize.
Do you what?
I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Went down.
That's right.
I can't hear anybody.
Breaking up. Here it is.
Yeah, that's right. I can't hear you now. So I'm not going to be too bad. But so we've talked off camera, and I kind of want to get into. You guys have recently gone to direct sales, and in the community, and Chad, you've admitted this to me too, that sometimes there's been a negative connotation with customer service with Tweeterhead in the past. Sure. Obviously, you've lost some customers because of it. Some people have been very vocal in the community about it. But this is your opportunity to kind of talk about what your plan is now, because I know that you want to have people have confidence in Tweeterhead on the sales side of things. You've like I said, you've recently gone back to direct sales. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that because I know you wanted to address it tonight.
Yeah, I think so the direct sales was basically, David was like onboarding with me and becoming like a partner. And, to be honest, I was getting slightly burned out. At that point, I had been doing this like 7 years all by myself. And there are those ups and down moments. And, there's nobody to blame, but we had a rock star customer service rep. And everybody loved her at Comic-Con. Like I'd be in my booth and someone would show up with like a bouquet of flowers. So I was like, oh, that's sweet, that's for me. And it was for Debbie. And then Debbie would get invitations to drinks and dinner and et cetera. And she really had her finger on the pulse. Like she was, she just, I don't know if you guys saw, she just responded to someone on the Tweeterhead fans page about how did they get their Harley smoked to straighten up as opposed to bending over. And that's like, she hasn't worked with us for over 3.5 years or so. So then we had a little bit of a stumble. And, I was like, maybe we should pivot, focus on the creative and, let somebody like Sideshow or a distributor do some of the heavy lifting where, it was like, the sales and the shipping and then dealing with the customers who didn't get stuff. And so that was my decision because at that point I was just kind of like, oh, let's just see how this works. And so what we did, and I think this was a mistake, and I take total responsibility because David was not in favor of this. I think what we did, we kind of just like shut the valve on our customers. So in the old days, if I sold 100 items, I could tell you who 75 of the customers were because they ordered religiously. They were like family, they had my cell phone number, they could, and so I think that we truncated that a little bit. And then we started feeling like, hey, we're just making stuff. That customer connection is kind of not there. And I don't know if you could tell by our social media, we ramped that back up. And so we started more outreach with customers that way. And now we have a lot of stuff coming up this year, a lot of really cool stuff. And it's like, okay, now let's just dip our toe back in, do it on a limited basis as far as the amount of, the quantity that we are going to sell directly on our site. And at the moment, I am back to customer service rep like I was for the first 7 years or so of our business. And it's like, I feel like with the Scarecrow, which is going to ship soon, I feel like it's kind of like we're starting fresh, like we're starting brand new. And, we will have somebody come back and we will have like another customer service rep. And actually, Debbie has shown interest in coming back for a limited amount of time every week, which I think our customers would absolutely love that. But that's something we have to discuss. But at the moment, like I said, maybe all this pendulum swing is going back a little bit because we're back to kind of that grassrootsy part where, I wake up every morning and check the emails and get to start to interact with people. So, I'm hoping they come back mainly because whenever I was doing my little videos at my house, I had people sending me, like one guy sent me a camera or a little, nobody sent me like a tripod, and then somebody else sent me like a little GoPro to help me out. Like it was like, we have the best customers and the best. And I always say, I hate the word customers because I'm like, I mean, you could say to me, I love that Batman, I can't afford it. Or I love that Batman, I have too many Batmans, I'm not going to buy it. So I'd rather just say supporters as opposed to customers. But, you know, we have people that have been sticking with us for, it'll be September 28th, I think, is our 10-year anniversary. So, you know, starting off like this big, and now like once David came in, everything exploded. And so, yeah, we're just, you know, we tested it. We did like the results, but, you know, like all businesses, you pivot. And so we're going back to see, you know, how it's going to look now, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing that you guys are doing, you know, if you buy from you direct, you're offering discounts, which is fantastic, and, you know, good shipping prices and things like that. So I highly recommend everybody visits tweeterhead.com and order direct. Obviously, again, you know, when you order direct, that's going to help Tweeterhead out. And if Tweeterhead's doing well, then again, you know, they're more likely to maybe make some other characters that we're hoping for, or continued success with other lines like the Masters of the Universe, things like that. So again, you know, I highly recommend you, you know, you order direct from them. Obviously, there are other choices out there. And again, that's why we wanted to bring Chad on, just to say, hey, you know, this is what we're doing. This is what we're trying. And we want to prove to you guys again that we're, you know, back to being A+ Tweeterhead. And I absolutely believe in you guys. And I've seen what you guys have done over the last couple of years. It's just, again, it's next level. It's like, you know, Tweeterhead 4.0 at this point, because it just continues to get better. And so that's very, very exciting.
I was going to make a joke and say, it's like, I feel like it's Tweeterhead 25.0. So much over the past 10 years.
Yeah. That's right.
No, really,
I know we're going to get
people love Dave. People enjoy me over emails. And then it's just like that outreach, just the outreach. And like, even with you guys, like, just, you know, I feel like, you know, there was a point where it was like, okay, let's just kind of just pivot and see how it is. And, you know, like I told you last time I was on, it really is about community with this group, you know?
Absolutely.
I think I didn't realize how much that meant to everybody that collects and buys and is, you know, whether they buy or not, that this is like a big, you know, extended family in a way.
I always say, you know, we love the art, we love the media about all of this, but it's really the best part of all this has been the community that we've, you know, created through all of this, you know, whether it's YouTube or social media or whatever. We have become a family because we talk about all the time that our collecting is kind of a lonely hobby because not everybody gets it. Not everybody understands that we like monsters or comic book characters and painted rock, you know? And so it is kind of we always talk about it being painted rock. It's like, you know, but it's like, that's, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, we are a community and it is very, very special. I 100% agree with that. I want to give a quick shout out to Ian McPherson. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. That's awesome. Thank you very, very much. We're going to get to Dave Igo with some of the stuff that he's been working on here. But I wanted to ask Jeff or Dan or Eric, did you have some more questions for these guys before we get to that part?
I got a question. So you have a really good relationship with Sideshow, and occasionally they take one of your pieces when you're 1/6 pieces and they present it in 1/4, which is great. But I'm wondering if the reverse could ever happen. If there was a great premium format that Sideshow was putting out, could Tweeterhead put it out as a 1/6 scale?
That's a good question.
I think we've actually discussed that with them a couple times over the years. And I think it's just about timing the right character, what they want to do. Because they don't want, you know, in some ways you can view it as like, there's a lot of different thoughts. So there's no like one hard rule. Otherwise everyone would know everything and everything would be successful. But sometimes it's like offering one statue 2 ways can be great, gets out to more collectors. Sometimes offering it 2 ways can be viewed as watering down the one version kind of a thing. So we've talked with them. They've never said never. It's always just like a matter of like what character makes sense when kind of thing. So yeah, that would be my thought behind it based on the conversations we had with them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
And
think
what
it's a cool
David said, like to Dave's point is like, that's a discussion we've had often is like releasing 2 different versions. Are you kind of like killing one of those versions? You know what I mean? It's just been interesting to see the numbers for the different pieces we've released in both scales. So we've talked about it, but I mean, it would be cool. I mean, it would be awesome.
And I feel like sometimes you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because like I could see the community going, if you like, let's say the Sideshow Penguin, and that I thought that was an awesome piece. But then if you guys did a Tweeterhead Penguin, just a 6 scale of that, then there's going to be people in the community. Well, if I would have known that they were going to do a 6 scale, I wouldn't have ordered the quarter. It's like there's always going to be that argument too. So I know you can never make everybody happy, but I do think that's a cool idea, Jeff. I think that'd be really neat to see that offering, and then of course that would help expand your line of characters as well. So it's pretty cool. Dan or Eric, did you have anything?
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I'm curious as you guys build out the line, more of kind of a long-term view, how much are you considering the competitive landscape, like Chris was alluding to earlier? Does it really factor in heavily, or because like Chris said, there's a lot more competition these days, even than just 3-4 years ago, and a lot of newcomers on the block pumping out a lot of pieces. You've got the onset and the popularity of like life-size busts now, and it bigger. And I know you guys don't necessarily go too much, although you've done some. Does that factor in heavily, or are you kind of doing your own thing and what you believe is going to capture the interest of your customers?
Chad, you want to go, or do you want me to go?
Why don't you take that?
Right. Yeah. So like especially being at Sideshow for 10 years, there's a lot of like, I was at Gel Giant 3 years prior to that, working on their statues and collectibles as well. So it's been kind of crazy looking like the lifespan of the industry and being involved in it when digital collectibles was like just starting out, and people were like, it was digital versus traditional. Not many companies are making stuff. A lot of companies that were making stuff back then no longer exist. And some companies blow up, go huge, then they go away really quickly as well. And then some are like really standing the test of time. And, a lot of times I have found personally, when you worry too much about what other people do, that's all you're doing. And instead of like, just let's focus on our stuff, make it great. It's kind of like, for lack of a better metaphor, right? When other people worry about other people's families, it's like, dude, worry about your own family, like get your own house in order. And then maybe you can do advice on my house or whatever. So Chad and I, like, we're aware, we like to be aware of what's going on, but I found it's never healthy to be overreactionary to everything else that's going out there. And even at one point in time, I was always very competitive about being first to market with something. Like, I want to be the first to do this. I want to be the first to do this. And sometimes, like, when you're so aggressive to be first to market, it's like you're giving every other company the opportunity to learn from your heavy invest, because it's expensive what we do. So I found a lot of times great if other companies do something first, because then Chad and I can look at it and go, oh, we wouldn't do it that way. let's do this and let's do that. And it's like you can almost make in some ways a better thing, because you're seeing like someone else is like, I love metaphors. This might be another crappy metaphor, but like watch them walk out on the minefield first and see what blows up, and we can walk behind them or something, So I think there's pros and cons to that. So Chad and I think when we look at our line list, like, because we've mapped out through end of 2024, we're looking at 2025 now. And we look mainly at our own stuff, because we can't predict the future either, of like what other companies are going to be doing. But we do look at, hey, like, how often should we do a Batman, or which has changed a few times over the years, because we haven't had one in like 3 years, but which we have a new one coming out in July, as most people know. But yes, we look at that, like the currency of like how often we want to do certain characters that are viewed as popular. Like Joker did great for us, Superman did great for us, and then other characters that we want to do that haven't been done, like Two-Face or whatever. And so that's like how we focus on DC. Then we look at He-Man one way, we look at the other licenses, and we look at them all together, make sure we're not like, hey, do we have 3 female statues in 1 month? Because then we might be competing with ourselves with the collectors that buy just hot female statues. So I'd say it's more how I like to look at things. Then every once in a while, we make a decision. We kind of stick to it. We try and stay flexible. We see someone else do something. We're like, well, we don't want our thing to come out like a week right after there. So Chad and I might just have something done and shelve it for a while to give it some breathing space. So
yeah, it's interesting, because within the community, within the group chats, within Facebook, and there's tons of conjecture about companies jockeying for position with characters, and both responding and reacting to what the other's doing, or trying to be proactive about what the other. So from the collector perspective, there's definitely a huge perception that a lot of things are done with competitive, in mind. And sometimes it seems obvious that is happening. And other times it's like, wow, what are they thinking? There's such an opportunity to do this character, and nobody's doing it. What's happening?
That's like, it's like no good decisions are ever made when they're too emotional. You know what I mean? You have to like try and remove all your like FOMO or like whatever, and just try and like take a step back. And a lot of times Chad and I will like, we'll be one way one day, we're like, oh my God, we got it. And then we just sleep on it. And the next day we're like, what were you thinking? We should not do that at all. So we realize at the end of the day, we're making statues, painted rock, we're painted stone or whatever. We're not doctors saving lives. So any decision we have to make doesn't have to be answered that second. It can wait a day, a couple days, a week, or whatever. And we're making painted rock. So
that's right. So I have a question with kind of alluding to that. So how often does like what's going on with movies and media, do you guys have those conversations and try to coordinate, with what's going on? An example, I think what Dan was kind of talking about, maybe it was, we've talked on the show about the Riddler, massive Batman movie last year, the Batman with Robert Pattinson. Obviously the Riddler was the main villain. And still we have no, other than XM Studios doing a samurai one, we still do not have a Riddler. And so we're always surprised, like, why didn't somebody try to capitalize on that buzz? Because, and obviously I can maybe answer part of that is sometimes companies have done that and then the movie's a dud and then, it is what it is. But do you guys ever take stuff like that into consideration of like what else is going on in media whenever you guys are planning for characters?
I mean, we talk about it, like, obviously with this Flash movie, like, Michael Keaton Batman, that's awesome, or, the Flash or Supergirl. But, I think that those two worlds don't really collide necessarily, like collectibles and the movies. So, like, I don't know if we released a Riddler when that Batman came out, if it would have been any more or less successful than if we just release a Riddler. Because we wouldn't do it based on that character from the movie.
Right.
So, but you're right. I feel like that's kind of the ultimate crapshoot is when you do a character from a movie, because you just don't know. Like, you absolutely do not know.
I have a hard personal rule for myself, now entering my 40s finally. I feel like
welcome sir to the 40s.
Real adult. Yeah. I feel like a real adult. I'm like, you find what makes me happy. And working on likenesses is really hard. And it's like not the top of my list is like make movie accurate stuff, especially day-and-day movie stuff, because Chad and I have done it before where you get a bunch of reference and this is what you can make, or they give you no reference because it's super top secret. And then things change up until the last second, even digitally with costumes now. So it's like that's one thing for me that like is a deterrent to do day-and-day movie stuff specifically. And then also then you have stuff like the Batman where Chad and I talked many times about doing, the Batman. And I'm like, dude, if it's great, it's great. We can do it later. Like we talked about like, oh, we did day and day. And my concern is always like that. And if it like how many other companies are going to be day and day? And we saw like 5 different, Rob Pattinson, like Batmans come out like all at the same time. We're like, thank God.
Before the movie came out. Like,
so many Batman statues.
Yeah, so many, and then the other one is doing. Hey, if we did a comic book Riddler to go with the movie Riddler, I think I agree. Like I agree with Chad. Sometimes it's like sometimes you can almost be like drowned out in the noise of the movie version, and then people like that's not my Riddler or whatever because now like they're new to the movie scene and that's like their version, or is yours taken away from this, or do they now like this one more? So it's almost like when you wait and you let the noise die down, then you can kind of like reassess and be like, yeah, that movie's great. People want Riddler. Let's make a Riddler. In our case, we're already like in the middle of making a Two-Face, and I was like our risky new character. So it's like we made a commitment before we, knew. So yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, of waiting sometimes. I mean, look at your Michelle Pfeiffer. That's a perfect example. I know that one did well for you guys, and beautiful likeness, beautiful sculpt, and what was that? 30 years later, and it's it just goes to show you. Sometimes I understand that. Sometimes time makes you want to desire these things, which I know it probably like, I feel like most collectors are like people in their 30s, 40s ish, 50s. I don't know. I don't hear as many, like my kids, they could care less about collecting. They're into other things. Does that ever worry you guys about like trying to hook those younger collectors?
Are you referencing aging out?
Aging, I think, yeah, we'll go right back to aging out. That's right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think David and I really worry about stuff like that, but I do think that there is something to, a discussion to be had. Like, are we selling to 18, 20-year-olds, because there are so many factors. I mean, they might love it, but they can't afford it necessarily, right?
Right. That's a good point too.
But, if you look back at when we were, or I will say when I was younger in DC, it wasn't even DC Direct, when they were making like that very first Randy Bowen statue. Like, I was super young, but I was like, oh, I can't afford this thing, but I wanted it. So I don't know if age really is a factor. I don't know.
Not for me at all. It's like doing that work with statue collecting is like so hard. People love what they love, and we're making what we want to make because we love it. And I hate the idea that one day people might not be as into He-Man, but thank God, like, Mattel's investing in the property and making the continued of the Revelation TV show, and then the new 3D show aimed at kids. There's the DreamWorks 2D animated She-Ra show. And those all roped in new audiences. And even I know a lot of people who are Thundercats fans really balked at that 2D animation show that came out a few years ago. That was like really, really stylized and wacky kid friendly. But to me, that stuff's all great because it all brings them in, and then they'll want to know the original source material, hopefully. And so if we might one day make more Thundercats stuff, I'm hoping the people that watched that show 5 years ago that might have been kids, in 10 years from now, they'll be aware of the older source material and want dude, what's the live action Game of Thrones style TV show of that thing look like, and so I really hope the licensors are doing what they can to make sure that the audiences are there by making sure their characters are popular and relevant, and I know that goes into a whole nother hairball discussion about, not to get too political, but the woke issue of hey, they're changing characters too much for me now. It's well, I don't know, I like it. I think there's a whole discussion we could have on a separate chat or whatever about what's too far, what's not far enough or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing their part and trying to make sure that's not just staying relevant for the people who've only loved that character, but trying to bring in new characters and a new audience, new younger audience. And I think that's really risky for them to do. And I applaud them for trying to do it best they can, because at the end of the day, they want to make things successful.
I mean, I agree. And David and I just talked before this, just briefly about something else, about a movie character. And I just said, I don't care what ethnicity represents her. I just want her to be represented really well, which she wasn't being. So that movie, whatever. But so, that's my thing. It's just, I just want the character to be represented really well.
Yeah. I think, Jeff, was it you that posted about the article about superhero fatigue or whatever? Yeah, and then everyone. And I was posting that too. I'm I don't think it's superhero fatigue. I think it's bad movie fatigue, where people want good. I mean, Spider-Man's doing great right now, and I enjoyed The Flash. Wasn't perfect. I had my issues with it, but I walk out as Spider-Man. I'm that checks every single box for me, and I can't wait to see the next one. And the original one was amazing, and so it's I think if you make a good movie with great stuff, people will come. And same with if you make great characters, people want to buy comics, video games, and figurines, and hopefully high-end statues of them. So,
man, I think you're right on the money with the bad movie fatigue. I mean, I think that's a great way of looking at it, because I think you're exactly right. I mean, there's ever since what Endgame, it's just it's kind of been downhill with some of the quality of these movies. And again, we all talked about Flash. I talked to Chad on the phone the other day. I gave it a 6.5. Dan, I think you gave it a 5. I think. And it's there was it had so much potential. And if it would have been awesome, if it would have had a great CGI, then, who knows what the result might've been. I don't know, but I think you're exactly right. I think it is bad movie fatigue. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And again, it's just all over the place. What's a good movie? What's not a good movie? A lot of people love movies and some people hate those movies, but I think it's if you look at movies that are doing really successful right now, it's what are they doing right? And it always, to me, comes down to really good core story, a trailer that makes sense, where you're oh, that's a hero, that's a villain. I get I know what I'm getting invested in. It's all that stuff helps.
Well, that Spider-Man, I have not seen Spider-Man yet, but just I love the graphic style. I love the animation style. That's perfect. Why aren't we doing that more? Because obviously people love it, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, as an 80s kid, I'm super excited about that new Ninja Turtles movie. That looks great to me too.
I think so too. I love it. JR Collects and Games, $20 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, I don't personally collect 1/6, but all respect to all artists and companies who work hard to make products that an assortment of collectors can enjoy. Cheers. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, JR Collects and Games. Thank you for the super chat. I think I'm going to switch gears here. I want Dave to kind of talk about some of the things that they're working on. I know you guys have been asking questions in the chat. We'll try to get to those after that, if you guys are cool with that. And I think we also have a big announcement tonight. I don't know if when you guys want to do that. I do have the link, Chad, whenever you're ready for that. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Cool. So you want to hit Dave up first with your questions?
Yeah, I just like, did you want to just kind of basically talk a little bit about like what you're working on? I know the big thing right now that we just saw recently revealed was this monster line, which is incredible. I know Jeff saw it at Gilman. He saw it at Monsterpalooza, and it looked incredible. The shots of him is phenomenal, like, especially like the one with the raging teeth. I think that one is just insanely good. You want to talk a little bit about that line and kind of like what you see as your vision for that line? Because you obviously said it is, kind of your own take on this, kind of your own IP. Although somebody did say is it an open type of license? Because obviously people think of like Universal Monsters and things like that. So dive into that a little bit and let us know kind of what you have cooking.
Yeah. So Chad and I talked like when I first came on to help Chad with Tweeterhead, he immediately was like after we started going, I think it was like a few months in, he's like, I want to make monsters. I'm like, I love monsters. Let's do it. So he had a list of stuff. He was making stuff. And that's like where the roots of Tweeterhead started. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad. I think some of the first stuff you ever sold were those garage kits by Tony McVeigh, right? So they were, yeah. So that was like 10 years ago or whatever when he started. That's where Tweeterhead started before Kimba and then Munsters and Batman 66. So it's like that's where Tweeterhead kind of started, was like these original monster garage kits he did. And so we had a list of things. We weighed pros and cons to like which ones, then like how broad we wanted to go. So we were trying to come up with a name too. So it had like an umbrella to sit under. And we looked at things that were like public domain, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. If we ever make one, would be not based on a movie or this or that or the other thing. And just like the idea of like an amphibian. It's like, yeah, there's the Universal movie version. And then, obviously there's like the Monster Squad movie version. Then Guillermo del Toro did his version in like Shape of Water. So it's like a lot of people have done their own like amphibian, gill, fishman or whatever. So we just wanted to do our own take. And that was one, when Chad did his original garage kits, I think that was the one he said sold the best. So we kind of like started there, and it's one I was really into. And then we were talking about like, obviously doing like a Wolfman, which we teased today, and some concept art. And we talked about, I love that. It's like a lot of what we've been up to. Yeah. We talked about like, obviously like Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, like the big hitters in that world. And then we're talking about like, hey, we want to expand beyond just like popular classic movie monsters based on literature or whatever. And so we're like, Chad mentioned one of his favorite movies is the original Ray Harryhausen Clash of the Titans. And he loved that Medusa. And so we talked about Greek mythology, doing our own Medusa. So she got moved in there where, female statues tend to sell. Okay. So we were like, that makes sense. We can do like a sexy version of Medusa. And the concept art that we showed today was just like a design ideation for like how she could look, not necessarily her pose. Saw some people commenting on like her very neutral stance pose. It's like, well, that's sometimes in concept art when you're designing a character, you have to like, what does the character look like? Then you figure out the pose and the composition, the base and the story elements. And Wolfman, we designed in pose because it made sense. Gilman, I think we designed in pose too. So sometimes you just like got to figure out what does Medusa look like, and then what can we do with her story after that. So Chad and I have a whole list of things we want to do. We've planned out 3 years of these guys, and obviously we have like a mega list of like Blue Sky. But yeah, we even want to get into after like those three continue like kind of like when we look at anything like even with DC, we're like, hey, we want to do Justice League, we want to do Batman, Bat Rogues, like Lantern Corps, whatever. We look at like these subgroups of the group. I think with like the Myths and Monsters, we looked at the same thing where it's like, hey, we have classic movie monster type things that are public domain that we can do our own takes on. Greek mythology or other kind of mythologies could be like a grouping. Maybe we could do some like holiday themed things that could be really popular, like for different times of the year. So it's not just all like, October monster Halloween stuff. Like what could be other things throughout the year that might make sense. So it's been great. We just, have to, like with everything else, find ways to balance what we're doing. So when we had Merman done, we're like, Gillman was our first character. Like, hey, 2 fish guys at the same time. We got so we moved Gillman out a little bit to give ourselves some spacing, let Merman do his thing. And then also that gave us extra time to really do some final tweaking to the sculpt on Gillman, because we showed him at Monsterpalooza last year for the first time. Chad and I took some extra time to work on it. With all these, I want to do 2 different heads. So yeah, we took time to work with Paul Komodo on a design for a second head, which is that one. And then figure out some more designs for the rest of the line. Just make sure we're happy with where we're going with this whole thing. Not just it's a one and done, but how do these look together? So I think we're really happy with where we've gotten so far and what's planned. And if Gillman does good enough, which we think he will, because it's a different number we have to hit, right? Because it's not like a licensed character or something like that. So Chad and I are pricing it accordingly. It's still a very involved and detailed character. Jeff saw the piece there in the base has a bunch of separate leaves and little critters and things on the base, I think there's 2 frogs, 2 turtles, and a giant snake, and then all the leaves and mushrooms all key off. We have to talk to production about how to make that all happen. But it's a very involved piece. Love it. I think it works great. We talked about what scale to go with. I know a lot of people like quarter scale or fail, and Tweeterhead has 6 scale classic stuff. We found good success with the He-Man 5th scale Legends line, and it has a look to it. And so we're let's make that the other Tweeterhead thing. 6 scale is more classic, we're doing He-Man and Battle Cat Deluxe, which is classic. That's 6 scale to work with our classic stuff. And then we have 5th scale, more highly detailed stuff, which is big enough, that's has presence, but it's not so big where people can't potentially have a collection. I mean, I know some people have Insano, 30 quarter scale piece collections or something like that, but that's not
that guy.
It's I got a lot of crazy stuff here. I tell you, I got a lot of crazy stuff. But
we've talked about that, dipping our toes into some a 3rd scale piece maybe down the line where it makes sense, or we dipped our toes into life-size bust with Skeletor, and we have that He-Man bust that we're gonna. I don't know if we announced the day it's going up, but we just put one of our new photographs of it on our Facebook header too. But that's going up. I don't know if we announced, but I think it's okay to share. But that's going to be going up the week after, so next week, right, Chad? Is that what it is?
Next Thursday.
What day is it today? Yeah, no. Yeah. We'll have the He-Man bust.
28th, I think. 28th.
I say right before my birthday. That's awesome. And of course, we saw He-Man, the He-Man bust. Of course, we saw Skeletor at San Diego Comic-Con. Jeff, you got to see it in person. What was it like to see some of those statues in person at Monsterpalooza?
It was awesome. They had one of the best booths at the whole show. I mean, it's really cool to kind of stand back and watch people walk into the booth and see what pieces grab their attention, what they focus on. And I'm telling you, Gillman was really, really popular among collectors and among just passersby. They were stopping and looking at that thing. So I think it's going to be a really, really popular line. I haven't heard a negative thing from anybody about Gillman yet. So I'm really fired up about that line myself.
Thanks. Yeah, another fun thing at Monsterpalooza, we had Mike Hill come up to the booth twice to look at the Gillman, and he's the guy that worked on, designed, and sculpted the 1-to-1 amphibian man for Shape of Water, and so he's a legend in the creature effects world. And even he was he came up and he came over to me, he's like, "That's awesome," and then he walked away. I'm like, "Thanks." Just it's almost having Jim Lee come up and look at your DC stuff and go, "That's awesome."
Yeah. How many pieces do you think you'll be able to do in that line a year?
I think we're starting. So Gillman's the only one this year, and then just to space them out, the next year we have 2 planned. And then if they do, because we don't want to, whether it's those exact 2 or not, I'm pretty sure it will be those 2. But yeah, I think we talked about Gillman first, Medusa second, Wolfman third, just because we didn't want to be Gillman, Wolfman, then have people expect only those. We want to kind of set the stage for different things. And I know some people were curious about the black and white, if the whole collection would be black and white or not. But we talked about classic monsters, we're based on film, that makes sense in black and white. Medusa, we're not sure what a color variant, if we did one for her, would be maybe stone to work with the black and white, or maybe if we do a really cool snake pattern on one, maybe the other one's a different kind of a snake pattern. So I think we're trying to be flexible and dexterous. I think if anyone is concerned about the more classic monsters being offered in black and white, I think Chad and I want to do all those that way, so long as they perform,
Man, I love the fact that you're doing black and white. I just think that looks so cool. I think that'll be very popular because it's different. It's just different.
Thanks.
Kind of reminds me of.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chad and I were talking about ideas on like what we could do with Gilman. Like we have the 2 heads. I want to make sure everyone got both heads. So we like, hey, standard and exclusive both have those, and there's not even exclusive. And then we end up being like, well, we really want to try one piece that's Tweeterhead only. Like get back to like what exclusive means kind of thing, like just really like this is exclusive to us. And then I talked about like, in the past, we've been hesitant on going back to international shipping because the shipping rates just change over the year from when a piece goes up for sale to when it delivers. We talked about with this piece, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cheb, I think we're going to offer it to like everyone. It would just be like, hey, if you're international, like you pay now just for the figure, and then when it's get ready to ship, you have to then pay for your shipping. And if you don't want it because shipping's too much, like obviously we have like a non-refundable deposit. All good. We get it. Here's part of your money back, and give people that option to jump in now. So we want to try and solve that problem.
Yeah. And I think and I have to be honest, part of pulling back from the international, and we love our international customers and supporters, but when you send a package, some of the pictures we've gotten when it arrives halfway around the world, it is insane. Like it's just been like beat up.
Somebody mentioned earlier about polling. Have you guys considered doing polling in the groups and things like that, whether it's DC characters or whether it's what monsters they would like to see? Are you guys interested in doing some of that just to kind of gauge kind of where the community's at?
Or even like a Kickstarter. I think we mentioned that once.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
So Kickstarter, like, I don't know. Everyone has their opinion about that, and I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if that's the right avenue for Tweeterhead, but I don't know. Those are good questions, but I think that would be something like that's something we've never really talked about as far as like polling. Putting something out there. So they're good questions, but honestly, I don't have a clear answer at the moment. So, Dave, if you want to jump in, you can. But I just want to be honest. I've never really thought too much about that.
Yeah, I think so I'm pretty active on like statue forum just because that's where I was before Facebook was really a thing with groups and everything. So I'm kind of like active on there, and I've posted surveys before asking people, because to me it's like I think random polls, you get a ton of people that don't care and then just vote one way or the other, and they're not going to vote with their wallets. I've always tried to when I ask these surveys on statue forum, I'm like, hey, like write up this, here are the rules if you want to participate. And it makes people a little more invested, like spend a little more time. And to me, that gives me more of a meaningful like sightline to some of these people that actually like have been buying and stuff. Not just like, here's a poll in this one group, and then you get like all these people voting. And I've also had like people like polls go one way, and then when you realize like, oh, we can't do that, we have to go this way, then everyone that voted one way is like against you, and they act like you did this intentionally to screw them over. And I'm always like, why give anyone a reason to be like mad at you for saying you'll potentially do something they don't understand? Like things can change and you can't maybe do that. Like I think we're still hearing every once in a while from like, I think Chad did like a hot girl poll years ago. I still like hear back on that thing, and like, what about that poll where you promised this thing? I'm like, dude, polls aren't guaranteed contracts or it's like you're gauging it as much as possible. And then I found this out like over other things over time too. A lot of times the vocal majority can be the financial minority. They could like all these screamers can feel one way, and then two of them show up. It's like, sweet, thanks. So
I think my thing against polls is I did a poll once of how many people wanted the Wonder Twin statues, and nobody voted on it. So it's super bummed out. So now I'm against polls altogether.
That's right. People are getting mad at me in the chat because I'm not highlighting their questions. So what I did say is we were going to go through all this first, and then I would get back to the questions. But I'll do this one since you were talking about Gilman. Bane21's asking, is there a chance to change Gilman's seam line closer to the head and less on the chest? Is that done, or is there still a chance that could be tweaked?
Oh, it's the whole, it's got to go down to there because the gills on his neck are like different per head. So we're looking at a good place, and we're going to make it work, make it look good. Sometimes what we do on the prototype, like the way Chad and I work, we do prototype, and we always adjust for final tooling. And so like what might be semi-noticeable right now, like we're trying to correct that, and we'll like sometimes going after the fact and like do a little sculpt that to like push things a little bit more. But yes, it's gonna be like pretty much the traps, unless the factory sometimes tweaks out a little bit too. But that's where we found like to get enough of like what's going on under here between the two. So yeah.
The C lines generally, like, do they cause a lot of problems? Like, are they frustrating for you to sometimes too, like knowing that you're going to have a swap out and things like that? I would imagine that's difficult at times.
It can be limiting when you have some like Wonder Woman where you want to do multiple heads, but it's like she has nothing, like it's like, all right, give her a necklace. Like Wonder Woman doesn't have a necklace. Then you got to do the whole torso. It's like, so sometimes it gets great. Like sometimes it's great because it's really lends itself easily. And sometimes it's not great because it's like, well, where are you going to do this? And so you have to like really commit to one thing or offer crazy swap outs or whatever. But I find it as an artist, like fun, like a puzzle to figure out like how can we hide this, how can we push this a little bit more. Like when I worked on this Hulk statue years ago at Sideshow, it was always like I was trying to cheat wrinkles around the head if we wanted to get a head swap in there. So like at least there's something trying to hide instead of like this clean neck and there's like just a cut line. It's like you want to find ways to hide things best you can, even if it's whether it's a swap out or the way it has to actually assemble, because as you guys know, you can't like just make everything one piece. Things have to break off. So it's like, how do you hide it? Where do you hide it? And we do the best we can. And sometimes, like you just miss things, forest through the trees kind of a deal. You think you catch everything and you just, there's that one thing we missed, or we forgot. And then someone catches it after the fact, like they're the expert and they would have caught that if they had a million things on their plate they're worried about that day. Like, I don't know.
Are you guys working on multiple projects at the same time?
Oh yeah.
Always. Yeah.
All the time. In various stages too. Like Chad and I are talking line list for like what's going on in 2024, what's in design in early 2024, like late 2023, what's in sculpt, what's in paint, like all that stuff's constantly like you have a project, at least one project in like every stage all the time,
Everyday Collector says, I'd like to know if Tweeterhead Gilman exclusive will be available to international buyers. I'm in Canada also for future exclusives.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we touched on that earlier. We're going to try and make it so if you're internationally pay for the statue in full, and then once it's available, we'll charge shipping and then ship it. So, yeah.
Somebody's asking about, and we can kind of switch gears a little bit. Unless, do you want to announce anything here, Chad, or do you want to wait for a little bit?
Yeah. So, this was kind of like perfect timing. It kind of just happened perfectly that Gilman goes up tomorrow. So we just thought we would put him live right now. So if you want Gilman, you can go to tweeterhead.com and purchase him right now.
So I just put the link right there in the chat, guys. It is available now. So again, tweeterhead.com. You guys can be the very first ones on the planet to order it. So again, thanks to Chad and Dave for letting us be the premiere of that piece being up for pre-order. That's very, very exciting. And I'm just hoping it really does well for you guys, because I think it has the potential to be just an incredible line. And again, who doesn't love monsters? I mean, monsters are fantastic. Again, just all of the possibilities. Yeah. So that's just
we'll
very
pause
cool.
for 5 minutes. And all four of you can go and order Gilman.
That's right. Well, while you're ordering, maybe Dave, you can talk a little bit about. Somebody mentioned Beast Man. What do you guys have planned for your Master of the Universe line? Obviously, that has been a big hit for you guys. Let us know a little bit about what's going on with He-Man.
Yeah, so we at PowerCon, which we're going to again this year, which is in August in Columbus, Ohio. So if you're there, we'll be there. Or if you're planning on going, if you're in the greater area, want to come say hi, I'll be there with Mandy, who's our senior vice person. We always joke about that because she helps us like so many different things. We just called her an SVP. But last year I did a panel and we showed Beastman and Sorceress. So they're next in the 5th scale Legends line. Then we teased the 6th scale Skeletor on Panther Classic maquette to go with the He-Man Battle Cat. So that's the immediate stuff we have going for this year. So the He-Man bus goes up for sale next week. Next in line will be the Beastman, which I think is tentatively late July, early mid-August, depending on how things go. And then Sorceress will be end of the year. Then somewhere between Beastman and Sorceress will be Skeletor Panther. So that's like how we're looking at the year. And then Chad and I were talking earlier again about like the future. And so we'll probably save some of that back a little bit just so we're not like over, like you want to keep people excited. But we don't want to like announce something that keeps moving out. And then people are like, why is this taking 3 years to make this one character? So we try to make a rule that if we're not in sculpt on something, we don't announce it, we don't talk about it, like, because things change in design, even early sculpt that can change. So Chad and I are trying to be better at, like, once it's in sculpt, we can start talking about it, and then try to strategically plan it a little bit so we can kind of like make sure it's not like, dragging out the whole like tease process too long. We want to make sure we can announce it, few teases, then it's there. So I think Beastman is I've been teasing it now for a couple of years. That's why I don't like doing that too much. So I want to Beastman's this year though, for sure. And I'm super excited about it. Still at the very end of sculpt on him. We're working on like how the second portrait could look with him. So we're going to do 2 portraits with him, like we've been doing with other characters in that line. So yeah.
Well, you have to be really excited, I would think, about how well this line's been received. Obviously, it's just, I feel like each one's gotten better and better. It's just really, really cool to see. Again, I was a big, giant He-Man fan when I was a kid. My favorite Christmas present of all time was Castle Grayskull. I'll never forget that. And it's just like, it's so cool to be able to see. I mean, I feel like these versions are the coolest versions ever. I mean, way better than anything else I've ever seen. And again, just being able to see it at San Diego was really, really exciting. And I know Jeff saw them as well, and it was just really cool. Even Skeletor bust and everything else. I have to tip my hat to that line, because I think you are doing an incredible job with it.
Thanks.
Well, and, I've said a million times, but I am hands off that line. That is all Dave.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Chad's been super supportive. Mattel's been super supportive. It's not too often as a fan / collector on this side, because I love the stuff that we make, but also like as someone who's involved in the production and producing these things, like see a line start at one company and continue at another company. It's like not often at all. I think with like, especially with He-Man, like we had the classics line, Mattel started and Super 7 got to continue it for a bit. And then before they evolved and Mattel started doing new figures and stuff. So it's been great to see it, like this thing I started at Sideshow continue with Chad at Tweeterhead. And even, sometimes you make decisions at one point in time. I'm a designer. I love designing and pushing design aesthetic, like changes and tweaks, instead of just like copying what's literally on one thing and putting on another. And that's, can be risky. Like you learn a lot from it. So I think all these years, almost 18 years I've been working in this industry, it's like you learn a lot about what has worked, what hasn't worked. And you try and like take all that feedback in to make the best decision on the next piece. So it's like, certain pieces with Sideshow where we're able to like revisit Skeletor. We applied some of those tweaks to the 1/1 bust, and we're gauging how people receive that and then taking that and just applying it to the statues. So I don't want people that bought the originals to feel like we're completely changing the line. It's continuation, very much so. So it's like people who bought the original Skeletor, they buy this Skeletor. It's too, like, they feel like they work together, but then they're two different attitudes, two different poses. You can have your, it's not like we're trying to redo or replace what was done before. It's just like we're trying to keep evolving it all the time, because it's like, part of life. You want to keep growing as a person. You want things to get better. You want your friends to succeed. And I love, like, if this line is successful, it means I get to keep doing this for fun. I get to keep paying awesome artists to contribute and be a part of this. And we get to see like all these characters we want to see, and even hopefully some more riskier ones, get made down the line, and kind of like hopefully have one of the longest running statue collections, period. Sometimes you see a collection even at a company start and stop, and then they change all the time. And so far it feels like one of the longest running ones. It's been consistent, so I'm really fortunate.
The cool thing for me about the Motu line is like when we were transitioning over, it was like, let's just test it. Let's like, proof of concept. Is this going to work or not? So what's like the riskiest character you could make as a statue? So the first thing Dave and I worked on was Orko. And that thing blew out like crazy. And it's like, wow. And then the second thing was Hordak. And like, we're in year 4? And we're just getting around to Skeletor at this point. So it's like, it's amazing. Those fans, they're diehard fans.
Yeah. And there's things too, like when Chad and I started working together, like COVID happened. So there's like some slowdown. There's us figuring out the new relationship direct with Mattel. Their teams change a couple times. And it's like Chad and I learning how to work with each other too during that time. New artists. We have a constant rotation of artists that we work with, and try and keep the core team happy and busy and find what works best for them. And a lot of times, even with like Gillman, someone's like, who sculpted Gillman? I'm like, well, here's the list, because like things start and stop. A new project comes in. We have to have this artist is good. This move from this project to that project. So there's like a lot of artist juggling too, but that's a great thing, because it doesn't I don't know, we all have like some sort of ownership over these pieces, but it's never about like that one artist. You know, to me, it's always like about the group that makes the piece, and giving them all credit, celebrating them all equally, because just because someone did the base and someone else did the figure and someone else did the portrait and someone else like edited the whole thing or whatever, it's like we're all contributing to making this like awesome thing come together. And one thing I love about working with Chad is if we're not happy with something, we'll like pause it and keep reworking it until we're happy with it. It's not like, well, we have to hit this deadline, we have to put it out. It's like, end of the day, to us, no one that buys something online, with very few exceptions, cares like how long it took to make that piece. This care, does it look good? Do I want to buy it? You know, like, is it based on price or based on how it looks? Right. And so we want to get it right. And, you know, we're always learning. We don't do perfect product all the time, but I like to think more often than not, we're like really self-critical about what we do. And we try to always learn from past and apply it to the next piece. So.
Absolutely. So, Chad, I know your battery is dying, but I wanted to ask you one other hard-hitting question. Tell us a little bit about San Diego. Tell us about San Diego.
Yeah. Oh, San Diego. So we are going to take a break this year from going to San Diego Comic-Con. You know, it's been a really kind of like, we have got like, you're going to see like night and day between the first half of 2023 and the second half with Tweeterhead. And I think what we did was smart. We've kind of held back some stuff because it's been a little bit of a slow crawl this year. So we just decided that it's, you know, better off to take a year off. We'll be back next year and really focus on just getting stuff out, getting the stuff that you guys want to see. And it was a difficult decision because we love, I mean, it's one of the most fun weekends and weeks that we go and do conventions. But this year, just with what we've been putting out, like so far we put 2 things out and we're already entering July. So it just seemed like it was a smarter choice to focus on one side of the business than, you know, going to Comic-Con. But I mean, don't freak out because, you know, the anticipation is that we're going to be back there next year.
If not,
I mean, obviously, go ahead, Eric.
If not San Diego, is there any other smaller cons like besides Ohio that you plan to do this year?
This year, no.
Yeah, we did Monster PowerCon will be in Ohio. And then, with Chad mentioned this a little bit too, but I don't think people really realize like how much of a time sink doing especially a big convention like Comic-Con is. It's like from late June or even mid-June all the way through like the first week of August. It's almost like 7 weeks. It's like that's your only focus. And a lot of our projects just get like delayed. I'm trying to answer artists on this, that, or the other thing. And then I'm like, oh wait, I got to work on this booth layout thing. I got to answer this Freeman thing. I got to like worry about this thing. It's like, it's so much of like Chad and mine's time. I love doing it. Comic-Con's one of my favorite things. And Chad and I are still going to go. We're going to be there like on the floor, walking around. We have meetings already set up and want to go. I love it because it's also like nerdy girl. I love seeing my artist friends from around the world who are all there. So I'll be there rocking a Tweeterhead shirt. If you guys, and I'll be hanging out with any of you nerds that show up too, and we'll go grab a drink or whatever. And we keep talking. And I think it gives Chad and I a way again, like spend the time to catch up on the product that we like moved out a little bit. Cause again, I think our original intention was to have like at least 6 pieces out by now. We have 2, we have a third one coming out like tonight. So we're a bit behind. And a lot of that too is just because we weren't happy with how things were going with certain pieces. We kept working on them. They kept getting moved out. A lot of times too, this year, it felt like late last year, early this year, we were a little bit cursed. Like every single one of my artists got like either sick, going through a family crisis, not like all at once. It's like all offset. So like everything kept starting and stopping. Like the He-Man bus was supposed to be out in March and I dealt with, and now it's coming out next week. It's like 3 months of delays just because of like life. Like everyone working on that project. It felt like that project was cursed. I'm so happy to get out there, but that was like so many projects for us. And Chad and I really want to do Comic-Con. Chad knows it means a lot to me personally, but also just like for the brand. I think it's like good to be there, show off your work, let everyone, like Jeff said earlier too, you get to see how people react to your work. You get to like, I love engaging with fans and collectors, whether they like stuff or hate stuff. I always like hearing what they say and whatever. And it's really energizing for me too, to leave a convention, go, that's really rewarding about like getting to share that experience with people and get to interact with them and let them meet like the face, like one, you know, me and Chad from the company and be like, hey, those guys are kind of cool. You know, like I'd have a beer with them, like whatever. And like Dave's not so bad. Like he seems online sometimes. And that's an important moment for me. Like what we were talking about earlier with like connecting with like like the greater community and family. So that's gonna be rough missing that. But again, like I already feel like a little bit of weight off my shoulders, being able to focus on all these projects we have, still in the works that we're supposed to be out a little bit earlier. So I know a lot of times people view that as like doom and gloom, either for a convention or a company's in financial stress or whatever. But for us, it was straight up like, I would say 80% was time. And then the other 20% is, it is a lot of money. We could take that and inject that into like all these other things we have going and really get ahead. Yeah. So it was mostly a time thing for us, I'd say, just honestly, and I know a lot of people will always think we're trying to spin a web of lies and deceits to fool people, but I'm not that good at lying. I'm horrible at it.
You got to find more volunteers to do everything for you.
Yeah, dude, it's hard. Like last year it was me and then Mandy, who I talked about earlier, and then Jeff May really helped out, and it was like mostly on me and Mandy getting everything logistically together and down there, and Jeff helped out a lot. Valerie helped out a lot too. Then we had Guillermo Barbarillo fly in from Argentina, which was awesome. So cool. Yeah. We had Brandon flying from New York too, which is great because I've known Brandon online for like 8 years now, and he was a guy that I knew of as a fan, but always appreciated his feedback on things. I felt he had a good eye, so I started roping him in as a consultant and designer, and you got to see his first artist credited piece on display, and that was really meaningful. Like John Stewart Green Lantern, I know he's like the biggest Green Lantern fan. He got to contribute and work on that piece and see it there and celebrate that. And that was like the coolest for me, was like that kind of stuff. See Guillermo there, all his pieces he's been working on for 3 years, and just like, if you guys have met Guillermo, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, I mean, number one, Jeff and I are still coming to San Diego this year. Regardless, we're going to have a great time. So hopefully we'll get a chance to hang out a little bit. And last year, like you were saying, like to me, that was my very first San Diego Comic-Con. I had seen, all of those sideshow booth tours over the years, and I dreamed about going to one of those. And it finally happened, and I'm so glad it did. But the best part was getting to meet you and hanging out with Jeff and I spent so much time with Guillermo Barbiero and hanging out with Brandon. Like, it was so much fun to get to know those guys. And we had great conversations, and it's just like, that was the best part, was meeting everybody and getting a chance to, just geek out with everybody. And it was just so much fun. I know Jeff can attest to that too.
Yeah, I can, but I have to comment on something you said, Dave.
Oh no, let's go.
There are Tweeterhead t-shirts.
Oh yeah, we need some Tweeterhead t-shirts.
Sorry, I don't know which one I'm facing. There we go.
Yeah, how do we get Tweeterhead t-shirts so we can walk around the con with them?
Oh, if you want, I'm sure Chad would totally hook you guys up. People like walking billboards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not proud. I'm not proud at all. I'll do it.
I'd love to wear a Tweeterhead t-shirt.
Can I bring up? That's where our Comic-Con budget can go into t-shirts. It's like throwing them out.
This is a perfect time for me to bring up my dumb question from earlier that I wanted to ask. What exactly is Tweeterhead? Where did that name come from?
Oh, dude, that's a Chad question. I asked him once. I totally forgot.
I did too. We actually, the very first time he told us, and I don't remember what he said, but I do want to apologize, or actually Chad wants to apologize. His computer's gone, and so he wants to say goodnight to everybody and thanks for tuning in. And he'll, of course, be on it again in the future, but he just wanted to say goodbye to everybody. Den, right here. Gilman secured. We have our first purchase.
Oh, boom. Thanks, Den.
Wow, nice. There you go.
Thanks,
that's fantastic. So, people are commenting about San Diego Comic-Con like nobody's going. So as far as I know, the only statue company going is PCS. I've got that confirmed from Aunt Adams. I don't know anybody else that's going to be there. But again, obviously there's going to be still a lot of things to do. You're hearing about the big giant companies like Marvel not having an announcement at Hall H. That's a pretty big deal. But I still think we're going to have a great time. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, San Diego was about comic books for a very long time, so I think it'll do just fine.
Yep, I'm kind of last year I know a lot of people thought it felt like Comic-Con light. I know some people didn't like that; they loved the craziness. Some people loved it because it felt a little bit more chill. They could actually walk the aisles a little bit easier and actually see stuff. It's not like huge crowds in front of everything. So I don't know. I never take that stuff as like doom and gloom. People are always jump to like hyperbole all the time. You know what I mean? Just like if something happens, like, oh, like world, like sky's falling. And I don't think Comic-Con's going anywhere. I mean, maybe it is, but I'm still going to go. I'm still going to have a great time. I'm super optimistic about it. Hopefully, even if some of these other places don't go, it opens up opportunities for new things to show up that have been on like the wait list, because Comic-Con has a huge wait list for like booth placement and everything like that too. Because there were no empty booth spots last year. Like Artist Alley sometimes will have a couple spots missing, but the whole floor was still like covered. Like it still has tons of stuff. People are gonna snatch up those spaces. I know a couple things are gonna change and evolve. I can't talk about because it's not my place to talk about, but I'm excited to see like what they do with the space they're given. And I think it's gonna be great. I think you're gonna see maybe some people that had smaller booths before have bigger presence, this year. And then some people that never had presence before will have a new opportunity, who might be able to see some new stuff. So I'm excited. That's
awesome. I'm a major fan of Artist Alley. I'm really excited because I don't know if you're familiar with all the DC artists, but Liber Mayho is going to be there from Paris. And I just ordered a commission from David Finch today. So I'm really excited about I started collecting, thanks to Dan and some other people. Matt Martin started collecting original art, which is, it's another rabbit hole that I should not have gone down, but I did.
Yeah, I'm in the original art collecting group too. Not group, but I don't know if group, but you know what I mean? I have some originals. Because I was buying prints every year. He'd come up with like a stack of prints. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, you only have so much wall space. So I had a friend who was original art collector. He's like, instead of buying all those prints once a year, buy one really meaningful original. And after 5 years, you have like 5 awesome big pieces. And before you know it, you're 50 and you have like 15 awesome big pieces. So I've been slowly collecting original art, and I have a couple pretty awesome ones I'm pretty excited about. So yeah,
it's crazy. I started out with just like a month ago. I started out with an original Jim Lee, which I was very, very happy with, and then now I've got a Mark Silvestri. I've got a Jock. I'm getting David Finch. Who else did I get? Dan. I got a Sean Murphy. Like, just it's so cool to be able to get this. Oh, and Tim Sale. Like that was my latest one, Tim Sale. So
awesome.
It's just really cool to be able to collect all this stuff. Say that again, Eric.
I said Delato.
Oh yeah, I got the Gabriel Delato remark as well. So that was very, very cool. So
do all you guys collect originals? Dan, are you into that? Is that what's behind you, or this combination of prints and originals? Or
so that's Clayton Crean, and one I really like right there is Liber Mayho. Over there, just a Sean Murphy doodle, but over there I've got Jason Fabok, Jim Lee, J. Scott Campbell. So,
awesome. I have a J. Scott Campbell on the way. Eventually, we just talked about like whenever I see him in person, he's gonna give it to me. But he gifted me a small little thing he did for like one of those corner boxes. It was like he did a Venom one. I'm like, I was texting like, dude, he's like, it's yours. I'm like, yes, I got like a little tiny little Venom corner box sketch I'm gonna get one day. So it's like, is this funny too? It's like J. Scott Campbell's known for like hot chicks. I'm getting like a little Venom head. I'm like, whatever.
That'd be awesome. That'd be very cool. I'm very excited because I've had a chance to talk to Liber Mayho quite a bit, and he said that he doesn't really do commissions, but he's going to do something little sketch for me or something at San Diego. So I'm like, I'm so excited because he's one of my favorite artists. So it's
cool.
It's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's huge and gets really expensive depending on if you're getting like commissions or if you're buying originals based on like covers, or if like sometimes you get lucky, you buy a sketch someone does and it gets turned into a cover and you're just like,
Yep.
Hey, can I ask you a question about the Batman maquette?
Yeah. I don't know if I can answer it. That's mainly Chad's thing, but you can ask and I'll let you know. Yeah.
So we saw it unpainted at San Diego last year. And then we saw the silhouette last week. And I was just wondering, the subtle changes that have been made, is that artistic, or is that because of licensing? Or some people are a little concerned about both his feet being up on tiptoes instead of what they normally planted.
It was not Warner Brothers at all. Like they rarely will come in at the last hour. Like when it sculpts that far along, like change the, like they've been really supportive with us on pose and stuff like that. Chad just kind of like saw it. He liked some stuff. He wanted to tweak some stuff. So he's like, hey, can I just take this and run with it? I'm like, yeah, go. Like I don't know why you're asking me. You're Chad, go for it. So he took it, ran with it a little bit. And it just took a little bit longer to get made because Guillermo was reworking it with him. And there's like things that came up and like life, again, like what we kind of talked about earlier, like just some life stuff for everyone kind of came up. So yeah, it was Chad wanted to take and kind of like make some tweaks to like what he thought would be, better. So
cool.
And again, here's the silhouette, guys. If you haven't seen it, obviously it will be revealed very soon from what I'm hearing. And so again, that will be available in 1/6 scale. I think a lot of times it just kind of depends because obviously Sideshow's got the quarter scale license. And so it just kind of depends on what Sideshow wants to do at the time, I think, when it comes to quarter scale. So obviously some pieces will be quarter scale and some pieces won't.
Yep. Yeah. And we just finished paint on him, I believe. So we're going to photograph him, submit to DC, make sure they're cool with it. But like Chad mentioned, the newsletter, there's going to be 2 paint variants offered him like right away. So that's gonna be like, instead of doing like an exclusive part, I think we're gonna make it an exclusive paint version, just like with Gilman. And
are those the 2 variants available for Gilman right now, the black and white as well, or is that
I think
yeah, they're both up.
They're both up.
Yeah.
Now, Gold Boy says old Batman pose looks better than the new one. Again, you're never going to make everybody happy, but it's like some people are going to like the old pose, some are going to like the new pose. So it's it is what it is.
Yep.
But I mean, we're not getting the old pose at this point. But again, if you don't like the new one, then there's other Batman options out there. But if you like it, I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to look great with that line. For sure.
Something Chad and I have also talked about, which I'm sure you'd be okay with me talking about this, but there are like all those gray versions we've shown at Comic-Con or various conventions before. And Chad is very much like a less is more person. Like, don't hoard anything in life, get rid of everything. And I'm like, save everything. And like, because you never know. So you basically have a storage unit full of that kind of stuff. We're talking about maybe doing like a Tweeterhead specific auction. So if someone really wanted like that specific Batman, we're going to auction off because it's like the only one we made. And just like the Skeletor, that was great. That wasn't the one that we ended up painting. So we have like a unique Skeletor. We have a Trap Jaw. We have a Merman, He-Man, Battlecat, and some of these things look obviously like Batman, look very different than what they end up being. Some were like work in progress. So we're looking at like not a way to like get rich off these things, but just like move product, get it out there to fans that want it, try and monetize as much as we can off of it, and then use that money either. Chad and I have talked about like donating part of it to like certain charities or just using that to, some I love Chad for. I don't know how much he wants to talk about this, but I don't mind talking about it, but he's been very good at like giving bonuses and stuff too to the artists that we work with are all freelance based. Cause usually that's like when you're working for a company full time, and we always really want our artists to feel taken care of too. So sometimes it's something like that. If a project performs better than we think, we do like, hey, this Batman Guillermo that you worked so hard on that we changed on you at the same time, like, we auction this off, maybe, we'll give him a little bonus from that too. So we always try and like spread the love,
Just curious about, because you mentioned artists. Do you work with local painters or do you have to go overseas for the painters?
Oh, no.
When it comes to the prototypes and stuff.
Yeah, they're all local. We used to work with David Fincher a lot. Sorry, Fincher. There's movies on the mind. Mm-hmm. David Fisher a lot. And he's somewhere, I think he's in Tennessee or Louisiana, and now we work. I just have a hard time. Like I'm actually colorblind. So I see paint, like I see color, blues and purples, or any colors that get close to kind of like overlap a little bit for me. And so I have to work with local people so I can go see it. I can talk through it with them. Chad is really good, like over photos and kind of knowing what he's looking at. But I've always found it easier to like look at it in person with a painter and talk them through like what's working for me. Because a lot, even though I'm colorblind, I have a hard time being like, is that bright yellow or bright green? Because they look kind of similar to me. Like they know if it's supposed to be like flash, it's red. It's not like, oh, is Dave going to make it blue? Colorblind? Or like making sure that the tones feel right. Like I have a good sense of like tone and brightness and saturation and stuff like that. So it's easier for me to see that like in person. Like the He-Man bust, we started paint one direction with one guy. He's amazing. He really helped me out at a jam. But then like looking at things, sleeping on it the next day, looking at it in person and in sunlight, I'm like, we need to tweak some of these things. And so work with a local painter I can go bring the whole project to, which is way easier like packing a project to get into my car versus like packing a project to like mail and then like please arrive not broken or don't get lost or whatever. So that helps me too with my paranoia. So
a couple quick questions real fast. I don't know if you can answer them. Jeff Morris, our Brotherhood member here, Rogues Gallery guy. Is there anything Elvira related coming soon?
Maybe.
Maybe.
No.
You can read into that all you want. I'll never forget. I think I've said this to you before. Like, I absolutely loved when you used to go on Sideshow Live because you would always let something out of the bag, and I absolutely loved it because it was the only time we would ever get like a teaser. And
it was fun. I got in trouble a few times.
I would imagine.
I get it, but sometimes it's like it's fun. I don't know. You want to make sure connecting with collectors again is one thing, and then also it's like it's a great opportunity to like make people feel invested in coming on, not just to like see it or see this, but like they're gonna maybe Dave's dog will be on there again, or maybe Dave will do something inappropriate or whatever. It's like wild.
Well, you were by far my always favorite guest, so I was always glad when you came on. Yeah.
Thanks.
Arrow El Maestro says, are there any plans for a Frankenstein monster potentially?
I love Frankenstein's monster. I've done my own version of him too. I did a little mini. I don't think he's in here. Dang it. It's out somewhere else. But I did my own version. If anyone's on Instagram, I have my own personal Instagram, which is at David Igo Stuff, one word, because I didn't know if I was going to show art or food. So I'm just like, it's stuff. But there's like a little Frankenstein's monster bust I did on there, which kind of similar to like the He-Man bust. Sometimes I do these things to see like if I could do something, what would I do with them as a starting point? So no concrete plans, but he's definitely like on the list. It just feels like that's one like, a lot of people might go to right away, and maybe it's one we do. Maybe it's I don't know. I like the idea of like if life-size bust could be a thing too. Maybe that's another avenue for like myths and monsters. Like I would love to see like a life-size new Frankenstein's monster to go with my.
God, that'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, that'd be so cool.
I'm just planting little seeds here so I can see how people respond, this is my poll taking like, let's see.
It sounds like you're doing a poll.
Well, I mean, people love Frankenstein. I mean, does it get more iconic than him and Dracula? I mean, really, it's just like, good Lord. I mean, everybody loves, this is a fun fact, but my cousin married a guy and his great-great-great-grandfather was Boris Karloff. How cool is that?
Wow. That's cool.
That's cool.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, it's pretty cool lineage, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of I was talking to artist friends, especially like friends that show up at Monsterpalooza, and like I try and help them with like a lot of artists I love. A lot of artists are like horrible business people. You know what I mean? They're just like there's artists I don't think are naturally business people. Every once in a while, I get like some artists that are very business focused, and I've grown into learning and liking and appreciating more of the business. But whenever I talk to my friends about doing something for Monsterpalooza that could sell, I'm always like, do your own take on Frankenstein's monster. And then they always get like, everyone does that. It's like, that's lame. I'm like, there's a reason why everyone does it. Like, do you want to make art to make yourself happy, which is great? Or do you want to, if your goal is to sell stuff at Monsterpalooza, like I make something that could sell at Monsterpalooza, do a Frankenstein. My thing with that too, when people say everyone does that, is like, then that's your challenge, is to make yours unique and your own and stand out. And that was like when I did my own little version that I posted on Instagram. I did a little 1/6 scale bust. I sold a few of them. That was my challenge I did with it. It was my opportunity to study him, study the Karloff, the Bernie Wrightson, other versions over the years. And like, all right, what are the things that make him? And like, what are the things that will like make me get away from Universal Monsters so I don't get in a lawsuit? What are the things that like help it feel like nostalgic and so people connect with it? It's not like, oh, here's this completely random monster and you don't know what it is. I have to explain to you, like, that's my take on Frankenstein's monster. They're like, well, if you have to tell me, then I think it's a failure. You want to do something that instantly people go, that's him. So I think we do that with like the Gill Man, and if we do a Frankenstein's monster, which I'd love to do, that'd be the goal as well. Sorry, long-winded answer.
That's a great answer. It's a great answer. Let's just do a couple more questions real quick. Julie is asking about a Poison Ivy. She loves the Poison Ivy. She has that piece. She's a major Poison Ivy collector, by the way. And she was wondering, would you guys consider doing characters you've already visited once?
Totally. I mean, like, it's like, a lot of Tweeterhead 2.0 was like, doing a new Superman that could change the way from what we did with Superman originally before I was here, and with new artists, what we could do with Superman. And so we've talked about the same thing with Ivy. Ivy is kind of like Tweeterhead 1.5 to 2.0, like transition piece. And it works great in both collections, depending on who you talk to, obviously. But yeah, we've talked about doing like a completely new one of her. We just want to like give ourselves breathing room so we can do other things we want to do before we like hit the same character again,
Yeah.
So
I see that question a lot with the I see the question asked a lot with the 66 Batman line, but I feel like that probably works better with the older style since it's like, the older classic.
Oh, totally. And that was 100% a Chad thing. If he wants to do Batman 66, I fully support him. Me, Dave Eigel, will never want to make a Batman just because it's like, again, getting to that has to look exactly like this one thing. And I'm like, oh, I want to make He-Man. It's just where I go. I want to make.
And those 60s, the Batman 60s line, those likenesses were really, really good. Like and he was ahead of their time where a lot of companies weren't getting likenesses right. Chad from day one, like, and even the Munsters line, like all of those. And I don't know who sculpted those. Was it? When Paul
Trevor
was
did
it?
I think Trevor did a bunch with Chad on that stuff. Trevor, Grove back in the day.
Yeah, Trevor Grove. Yeah. Uh-huh.
He's amazing. And Chad has a great eye for likeness stuff. That Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman new one is what it is because of Chad's eye and direction. And I'm horrible at that stuff. I'm just horrible. Like when I was at Sideshow and we did likeness stuff, we had a team of people that knew that stuff. I'm like, I trust you guys. I was more involved in like pose composition ideas. Like when we worked on someone specific, if it's like, make sure this looks like this, I'm like, oh, dude, I'll find someone else that's passionate about it, that gets it and loves it and has a good eye for it, because that you have to, man. You have whole companies that specialize, like Hot Toys. That's all they do, and they still have pieces that don't look exactly. You know what I mean? It's like even they struggle. It's so hard. It's, to me, likeness is pass fail. There's no in between. With like make this up stuff, it's like, hey, there's a lot of wiggle room to make a cool monster look like a cool monster, but as soon as it gets to a likeness, especially a female likeness, your target is like the tiniest target in the world. And I don't know. I feel like it takes like the effort of like one of those pieces is like I could make 5 He-Man statues. You know what I mean? Like the same effort. So.
Well, there has been so many positives with you joining Tweeterhead, of course, but this comment kind of says it a little bit too, because we miss when you would order from Sideshow, your face would be the very first one to come up with the whenever you placed your order. I was like, everybody misses that. So that brought a lot of people joy. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I still have a great relationship with Sideshow. I was there the other week to have lunch with Tom, my old boss, and a few other people there. And I still go there often to like drop off product. Like I'm going to be going there in the next couple weeks for digital Sideshow Con to like drop some stuff off for like their digital version of San Diego Comic-Con. And I might even be doing a video thing with them on that.
Do you have a really, really large suitcase where you could sneak me in just to have a tour? Because like that's like a dream of mine. And like I just didn't know if like, if I like maybe put a cloak or something around my, like sneak in behind you.
Oh man, I don't get full tours anymore. I mean, they're really like protective of what they're doing there. So like when I went there for lunch, like I got to see, like I went there pretty much. They have like their own not Sideshow owned. It's like Sideshow adjacent, but there's like a vegan cafe where a lot of the staff go for lunch. So I met them there for lunch. I got to go to the video place and hang out there for a little bit. But when it came to like the full studio tour, that's for very specific people. But I'm sure, if you are in their good graces and you're cool, like I'm sure you can get in there. Just make sure you have time and hit them up and see what they say. I can't, but I mean, back in the day it was a lot more relaxed and like if you work there, you just bring in kind of whoever you wanted whenever you want. I loved giving tours, love going to like all the departments, celebrating everyone, because I feel like sometimes people forget like there's a whole graphics team that works on stuff, a molding cast team that works on stuff. I think people always go to like sculptors, then painters, then designers, and that's it. It's like, no, there's a whole photo team, there's project managers, there's logistics teams, and like giving it to him, like this is the person that like charts all the success of all these things and tells us like what, it's like it's like, it's crazy how many people are at that company to make that whole thing function. It's like, it's nuts and it's amazing. I was super glad to be a part of it for 10 years and learn a lot from them. And I also really love being with just Chad, where it's like now I went from like this big like thing where you had to run through a bunch of different hoops to make sure something's like kosher to move forward, versus like, hey Chad, you want to do this? It's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, sweet. He's like, go. I'm like, just do, and I have like my calls with Mattel, it's like just me. Chad trusts me. He's like, if he needs to be on it, he'll be on it, but for the most part, like I run that whole relationship and he runs the DC one, and every once in a while we overlap a little bit, but it's great to like divide and conquer and have like, this is like the thing that I'm like really responsible for, so sorry, but that's awesome. Tours of Sideshow are cool. It's been a long time since they like gave full tours. I think now it's a little bit more like, hey, here's this like hallway and up here in this area, and then all this other stuff is, you know, under lock and key a little bit. And I get it. We were there. We had like leaks and issues before. So
yeah. I would assume there's probably an NDA or something along those lines, because I know, they're working on them for years, you know, and so I understand that completely. And man, am I good about keeping secrets? I am really good about that, because I have so many in my brain. But anyway, real quick, I had to show you, because we brought it up earlier. I had to show you a few of my things.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
that's
the Jim Lee one? Awesome.
And this is this one I just got this last week. Neil Adams.
Oh, rad. I love that composition on that one too. That's great.
Original art there. This one I just picked up from Fan Expo Dallas. This is a Two-Face. Do I have it backwards?
Yeah.
This is from Javier Fernandez.
Cool.
He did the One Bad Day, but isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And it's another one.
Bunch of Two-Face stuff. I didn't know you were a big fan of Two-Face. That's cool.
I told you I've been asking for Two-Face for a really long time. There's a reason. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Eric, Jeff, are you guys original art guys too, or?
Yeah, let me show you all my Riddler art so you can make a Riddler. No, I collect mainly just like the remarks, the smaller stuff that's not as expensive.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few of them though. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm a Gold and Silver Age comic collector.
Yeah. Oh, I know that. Yeah, that's real cheap too, right?
The stuff that this guy.
Cool. It's cool because any budget, you can collect Golden Age at any budget. It's just a matter of what condition you want, what titles you want. You can make it work.
Yeah. Awesome.
Paul says, "Yeah, you are, Chris. Maybe a little too good at secret keeping." Yeah, people always want me to like spill it all, but I'm like, no, I've got too many trusted relationships. I don't want to mess that up.
Dude, that was totally me on those Sideshow Live things. I'm like, it was almost like I was shaking my seat to be like, I just want to and I'm just like, if I sit.
That's the thing is like, if I was doing this 6 years ago, I probably would have just blurted it all out, but I've gotten so used to like, trying to like control what I'm saying. So I've gotten pretty good at it, but man, there's a lot of things I would sure love to share.
One thing that really like ingrained the fear in me early on was like when I was at Sideshow, I got to read the movie script for Age of Ultron and Batman vs Superman within like a month of each other. And I was like, if I tell anyone anything about these things, I'm dead. You just like, those are like, I mean, it was like Age of Ultron, the follow up to like the Avengers, then Batman vs Superman. It's like, wow, like obviously like you have to eventually read something or see something. But just going into those places and signing like this thick of an NDA thing just to read this thing that, and some of it changes, but like, and then it's to go to like from Marvel to DC and read like the two competing companies. It's like going into Coke one day and Pepsi the next. Like, tell me your secret recipe, Because
I think what you're referring to, if people don't understand, is like I think a lot of times companies like Sideshow or other companies, they get assets way early. If they're going to sculpt or they're going to make toys or things like that. So there's a lot of spoilers basically with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys get to see that sometimes way before anybody else. So I think that's, what you're basically talking about with the scripts and things like that, or art or photos.
Yeah. Some of it's that, and some of it's, I've just become, I'm very fortunate. I'm a very, what's that called? Extrovert, right? And socialite. Like I love getting out there and talking, meeting people and whatever. And I've become very close friends with people that run some like really prominent like effect shops. I've been able to like, you walk into some a little more casually, you're like going to hang out with the dude, and then you turn around, you're like, and it's stuff I don't want to say to this day, because if I said like, oh, I got to go to this shop and see this thing, well, it's after the fact, it's fine now. Someone will know, like that might be a producer and think like, whoa, that guy let Dave Igo in and see that thing early, like, and like, and I've told people before, like if I tell you the secret, you go to the grave with a secret, because if it ever gets out, like, well, now that it's out, now I can talk about the time Dave Igo told me about the thing you shouldn't have told me about. It's like, you're totally screwing me over, bro. Like, don't just keep that. Like, sure, tell your wife and maybe a close friend, but just like take it to the grave. Like, don't ruin it, man. Because then, a couple people have done that, and it's like, cool, not telling you anything ever again. Like you said, Chris, I don't like. I think Jeff's hit me up for a couple things before. I'm like, take this, like you tell no one, or Chris, when I'm like, you tell no one.
Yeah. It is crazy. Again, I literally talk to creative directors and statue companies on a daily basis, and every single one of them tells me things that I can't share most of the time. And it's like frustrating because I do want to tell, but it's like, well, that's some of the best part of it is the teasing, the teasing of things that are coming, or just knowing that good stuff's coming. And that's, most of my audience knows me by now that I do that.
It's very cool to be on that. Hey, I know stuff that's coming. And as soon as you're one of those people that because I've seen these people, and once you're the person that spills the beans, then you're no longer that person anymore. It's like, cool, you're kicked out of the cool kids club. It's like to stay in the cool kids club. It's like Fight Club. You gotta talk about Fight Club.
I'm real happy where I am, so I'm not going to spill anything unless I was told to spill it. So that would be about it. So anyway, do you guys have any more questions for Dave? I know we've kept him really long tonight. So you guys have anything else for him?
I'm here for you guys. So if there are questions, let them rip.
I mean, we kept them a while. If anything, if you want to go to the chat.
I was going to say, I've tried to get the questions going as we've gone. So I don't know if anybody's got any new questions or not. But like we said earlier, I'm really looking forward to San Diego Comic-Con and just hanging out with some people, and hopefully we'll run into you there, and hopefully we'll be sporting our Tweeterhead shirts. We'll be the Power Twins. Me and Jeff will just walking around.
Harass chat about. I'm sure he'd hook you guys up with everything you guys. I mean, it's like it's a T-shirt. It's not like it's like quarter scale Joker, whatever.
Emmanuel says, "Who is the more handsome twin?" So I'm going to go right with Jeff Delaney down here.
Easily, Emmanuel. Yeah, no. When I first met him, I was like, "Who the frick is this guy?" I was like, "Gosh, dang it!" It's like you're like a model. And then we joked the first time I met him, like, "I have long hair, you have long hair." This is a few years ago. We met at PowerCon. And I'm like, I jokingly, I got a photo with him when I went home to show Kelly, my now fiance. I was like,
"Congratulations, by the way."
Thank you. It's like, this is what you order online. This is what you get. It's like,
I saw that. That was awesome.
that bit you did with Emmanuel, and again, that was absolute gold with you guys and your hair. That was absolutely fantastic. So that was really good.
He's he's too cool. It's like he's got the cool French accent and shit. I'm like, oh god, just don't be near me. I feel like you go to certain weddings and there's the bride and she has the ugly bridesmaids or whatever. I'm like, hey, the ugly bridesmaid. Guy, get out of here.
Yeah, he's a great supporter of the channel, so it was really cool to have him do that for us. That was really cool, and
that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. A couple of questions. Well, again, we've talked about Riddler. Any chance we might get a Riddler? I know you probably can't say, but again, the community would really like one.
Yeah, he's on the list that Chad and I have talked about. It's just it's again balancing Batman centric characters, Justice League, Lanterns. We have a certain character we've been working on for years, and just we learned from Batman, hey, let's not show anything this character until we know where it's going to land on the calendar, because I don't want to have another I know someone online's joked about it's been 3 years since we originally teased Batman with Wonder Woman and Superman, those three silhouettes all together.
Yeah.
So. Oh, if I want to slip anything 2023 or 2024.
Yeah. What's he not going to get in trouble by saying?
I have a bunch of stuff opened up on my computer. So I'm like, what could I talk about? No, I'm kidding. But there's things. So there's things we were going to announce at PowerCon. We held back. Yeah, I think the first thing we teased for 2024 was Medusa and Wolfman. And then, so Chad and I have so the He-Man stuff, there's people could probably guess what maybe the next He-Man 1-1 bust might be if we continue that line. And I've talked about teetering on either Trapjaw or Hordak as the next life-size bust in the Motu Legends line. And because I think those would be the two coolest, get another faction lead going back to Hordak. And that's something I always look at too. Sometimes I'm like, this character would be cool first. But I'm like, but we just did that character in this scale and we haven't done that character in a while. So it's get hit. You always want to make sure you're not 3 Skeletors all at once, right? It's hey, even though they're different, we want to spread them out a little bit. And then there was a license we announced that a couple years ago that we might not have been able to do anything with for a while. We might be able to finally do something with, and we're hoping to show some stuff soon on that. So that's a little tease. And then we have another license we're trying to get. I don't think Chad's ever done anything with it, but he's a huge fan of it. And so that's one I think will make a lot of fans happy. And there's one specific thing within that license that's very creature oriented. I'm really excited to do that. I'm a huge fan of that. Might have had a cartoon show. So there's some really vague. You guys can Put your thinking hats on, you know, like.
And see, I already know the answer, and I'm not going to say it because I keep secrets. So it's like, all I could say is, guys, there's going to be a lot of really great things coming from Tweeterhead, and some things that'll surprise you and shock you. And I think it's really, really exciting. So I'm really excited for you. I'm really excited for Chad. I just think it's only going up for Tweeterhead, in my opinion. I think it's going to be awesome.
We're trying. A great thing about being a smaller company with just me and Chad, and then the handful of freelancers we work with, is like we are kind of dexterous, where we can, hey, if things slow down a little bit, like again, like we had a few projects that were delayed this year. It's not like the end of the company. It's kind of like, cool, let's just not go to Comic-Con this year so we can get ahead, catch up on these things, and boost up a little bit. And so that feels great that we can do that, because when you're a bigger company, you have like a lot more overhead to worry about, and like one shift in one thing can mean a lot more than for us, you know. So like we don't even, a lot of people ask like, can I get a tour of Tweeterhead? I'm like, it's like my back, this is my back third bedroom. This is Tweeterhead South, you know. It's like that's Chad works out of his.
Somebody just said, did you guys consider doing a Tweeterhead online con? You could just have it right there in your room right there.
Dude, we could. It's actually a pretty cool room. But yeah, we're doing it with Sideshow. We have a great relationship with them. They have all the cameras and all the setup. Like, I don't even know where. Yeah, I could do it with like all my fancy laptop thing and pull out here's this thing, you know. Like, I think someone mentioned even earlier they missed the videos that Chad did. I love that stuff too, because I think like some of that stuff feels more like in a weird way, not to make anything else sound not as good or whatever, but it's like a real genuine thing, you know, because it's like there's a guy sitting at a table and here's Prog in front of him. He's like, things are falling off, or, you know, it's like, oh, that's like a real person that represents the company that's doing this thing. And it's like real things are happening. It's kind of like when we did a behind the scenes kind of like time lapse assembly of Trap Jaw. I did that like a few months ago, and we posted that. And Chad had a weird, like, kind of like he wanted to be a little more polished, this, that, or the other thing. And then I'm like, just let's try it. Let's see what happens. We put it up, and a lot of people loved it. We got a ton of views because, and some people commented like, I like that feels like a real thing, not like this overly polished in a studio thing. Because that feels like sometimes when you go too far that way all the time, it feels like you're constantly pushing an advertisement.
I was going to say,
like,
it is a commercial. Oh. It is a commercial.
Yeah, and I feel like that's you need a balance, you know. So,
and I know why Sideshow is not going to San Diego, and I think a lot of times people feel like the online con feels like just a commercial, whereas that's basically what they're doing. They're advertising themselves at San Diego, but it also has that kinetic energy of the real people and the real conversations, you know, being to see eyes on product. And so yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think just that realness is what people want, because they don't want it to feel preached on or like it just feel like a polished commercial, like you said. I mean, I agree 100%.
Maybe there's an opportunity there to team up with one of you people with a channel or a camera, because I don't have any of those things, and we can be like, hey, how do we make this work this way? Because I don't want to buy a camera. You know?
Hey, we could do a BSC con anytime you want. I'm ready.
Yeah. So you really pigeonholed yourself to Batman statue collector. Gosh.
So Dave, on like, Newport Beach, just drive down, bring the prototype. We'll just do it together right here in the sanctuary.
That's true. Absolutely. I know I did. Sweet. I did pigeonhole myself, and then I changed. I've also got Brotherhood of the Bat collectibles, but that's still, you know, Batman centric.
I've got snacks. There's snacks here.
Yeah, he's got snacks and beachfront, which is nice.
That's true.
That's true. I always forget. I live in an area just far enough. Like on a map, it looks like I'm close to a beach, but it's like not convenient to get to a beach. So I live here and sometimes go the greater part of a year and forget like we have an ocean. I'm like, we have an ocean. I forget about that. Like I'm nowhere near it. Again, on a map, it looks kind of like I am, but it's like, you know, 45 minutes that way or 45 minutes down and over, you know, like it's like not convenient where I am at all. So yeah, but yeah, we got to hang out sometime, Jeff. You know, you're not too far away at all. How far are you from Redondo Beach? Is that close?
Maybe an hour.
Oh yeah. Are you further north or south of it?
I'm south.
You're south?
I'm like 20 minutes south of Disneyland.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And you're always there, man. You guys and you're Disney.
Oh, love it.
You know, Chris
San Diego Comic-Con, for me, we're going to do like just a few days at San Diego Comic-Con, and then we're going to Disneyland the rest of the time. So we love it.
Oh, yeah.
We love it.
Dan, are you guys into... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was curious if like I know you two are into Disney stuff. Dan, Eric, are you guys into Disney at all? Or you get like, yeah, it's cool. Been there once. I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm a huge DC guy, and my wife's a huge Disney fan. That's actually how my collecting got started. My collecting got started because she was collecting Disney statues and artwork.
She started? Wow.
Yep.
Then you
my
joined.
wife got me started.
Nice.
Yeah, big Disney fans. Yep, that family that worked there and the whole bit. So, yeah, big Disney fans. Don't go
Sweet.
quite as
You've got to.
Yeah.
You've all got to get to down to Florida to Epcot and ride Guardians of the Galaxy because it is the greatest ride I've ever been on in my life. It is so much fun.
Wow.
Um,
I'm a big roller coaster guy. Like I love Six Flags. We're just going like huge things with huge drops. Just that's
you would love this. It's basically Space Mountain 70.0. Like it is so good, and the music's really great. Great soundtrack. It's funny, and I love the Guardians. The old Tower of Terror. You know, they converted over at DCA. I love that. It's just because it's just fun. You know, the music's great, and it's just you laugh, you smile, and so yeah, we're I'm actually going. So in the next 4 months, we're going 3 times. We're going twice to Florida and once to California. So it's crazy.
It's a lot of traveling.
It's a lot. It's a lot of this type of year we travel a lot, and we're doing New York Comic Con as well. So, or at least I am.
It's a lot of money. Disney's expensive.
Disney's expensive.
Yeah. My wife's a veterinarian, so it sure helps.
Yeah. Animal doctor. You know,
animal doctor. That's right. That's right. And I'm a school counselor, so I'm making the big bucks. But anyway, anything else for Dave before we wrap it up, guys?
Nope.
Dan, you have anything? Eric,
we covered it, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, man. It's been great.
Yeah, totally. I know it's a bit of a smorgasbord of a lot of things to cover, and Chad want to talk about a couple things specifically, but it's always fun to engage with you guys, pick your brains about, you know, I get to watch your stuff every once in a while, but I'm always so busy between like working, my personal side projects. I teach on weekends, you know, and I like hanging out with my friends too. So it always gets hard sometimes to like really catch up on all the videos, but every once in a while, maybe we'll like watch, see what you guys are talking about, keep a finger on the pulse with stuff. And yeah, it's cool to be a part of it, you know?
Awesome.
Well, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on. You were one hell of a cool dude, and
thanks.
I love having you on. Loving to be able to talk to you. And again, I've been a big fan of yours for a really long time. And thank you for everything you do for the community, the great art you produce. Thanks to Chad as well for taking the time to come on and kind of be honest about some things that are not always easy to talk about, but. You know, I feel like, again, I fully support Tweeterhead. I believe in what you guys are doing. And so I want to support you guys in any way I can. And hopefully this little show of mine helps a little bit and, gets the trust back in Tweeterhead again for direct sales and all that stuff. So,
yeah, it's always fun to be able to come on because I have just found, and I think, you know, Chris and especially Jeff, because I've seen Jeff probably the most in person, but like getting to be able to talk to people about stuff instead of letting people speculate, like I hate, it sounds really corporate, controlling the narrative, you know, but like at the end of the day, like either you can say it or you can let them assume the worst. And I'm like, I'd rather just put it out there, you know, just like say it as soon as you can. Yeah. Don't make anything sound like you're shitting on anything, for lack of a better term, you know, and just try and like, this is what we're trying to do. And yeah, we can't tell everyone everything all the time. Some people want complete transparency. It's like, it's not how any business works, but we try and share what we can. And I think we share a lot more than most other companies. And yeah, I love Chad's giving me a place where I can feel like I can grow, continue to grow and talk to people and not worry as much about stuff because it's a small company. We don't have to worry about like the ramifications of bigger things. And like, yeah, it's always fun. So hope to see you guys at Comic-Con. And Dan and Eric, you guys got to come out to Comic-Con too. Why not?
New York.
We've been trying.
Hey, come to the East Coast where we are.
Yeah.
Go to Ohio. Let's go to Ohio. Let's meet in Ohio for a drink.
I'll think about it. I've been there a few times.
It'd be awesome.
I would love to go to New York Comic Con, even just to like go with a badge or something.
Oh,
you know, like
crazy. Yeah.
I just got my pro badge the other day. No, Eric got his badge as well, and so very, very excited for that event. And it's definitely artist centric. You know, it's definitely the comic creator, and although this year there's a lot of big name celebrities also, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, last time I went was 2012 was the last time I went. That was
Wow.
10 years ago. 11 now. I was in my late 20s when I did that. Holy cow. It's weird.
Well, again, welcome to the 40s club. Although I'm closer to 50 now, unfortunately, which is, it is what it is. But anyway, thank you again. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate it. Again, we'd love to have you guys on in the future whenever things come up. And again, please do us a favor and support Tweeterhead all you can. Order direct from them. Again, Gilman right now is up for pre-order. I'll post the link one more time right here. And then I will pin it and put it in the discussion or down below. So you guys, if you want to order, again, it is, kind of a first announcement here that it's up for pre-order, and officially it'll go up tomorrow. And then it sounded like maybe that He-Man bust in the next week or so. So definitely check out tweeterhead.com. And again, thanks so very much, Igo, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Everybody have a good
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button on the way out if you would. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.